So good evening and welcome to March's Beaches Watch community meeting. We're so glad you could join us virtually. Tonight's meeting, we're focused on COVID and the impact that it's had on our schools. We have a panel of several, our administrator, our representative, as well as students. So we'll be hearing from a variety of voices of COVID and how it's impacted their lives, as well as learning experiences and the administrative experience as well. Before we get started, I'm Maria Mark, and I am your host for the meeting tonight. We have a few announcements that we would like to make right now. Could we have the announcements on the screen, please? So as always, our meetings are being recorded. So if any of your friends or neighbors happen to miss the meeting, they can watch it via video tomorrow at our YouTube channel, which is on the screen at Beaches Watch 2012. We are also have our membership drive that's running now. So it's time to renew or join for 2021. It's $15 for individuals, $20 for family, and $5 for students. Your membership runs from January through December, and you can renew your membership or make a donation at beacheswatch.com. See, we have some vacancies in the Atlantic Beach boards, the Cultural Arts and Recreation Advisory Committee, the Pension Board, and Board Member Review Committee are all looking to fill some vacancies. So please apply or get more information from the City Clerk's office. This is your way to really get involved in your city and be a part of hopefully the solutions that we all need. Also, Atlantic Beach on their website, they have some of their final reports on their on the different visioning and priorities that they have been holding workshops on. So please be sure to visit the website to see those reports. The 2021 legislative session will begin March 2nd and run through April 30th. To receive legislative alerts via email and or text, you can text Home Rule to 50457. And to receive Florida League of Cities legislative session info via email, you can go to their email address at bit.ly/FLC email alerts. Complete the form and select on tap at the CAP for weekly updates. This is a way for you to stay involved with what's going on in Tallahassee and just stay involved. Also, so some of the bills that will be impacting our beaches regarding vacation rentals, that's Senate Bill number 522 and House Bill number 219. This is an attempt to preempt local governments from regulating, licensing, and inspecting vacation rentals. These bills will undo any local registration, inspection, or licensing requirements specific to short-term rentals adopted since 2014. Let's see, we have home-based businesses, which is House Bill 403 and Senate Bill 266. This bill attempts to preempt local governments from regulating and licensing home-based businesses in residential neighborhoods. This will allow any commercial business to operate out of a home in a residential neighborhood. The third bill is combating public disorder. House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 484. This makes it hard for a municipality to reduce their law enforcement budget, holds municipalities liable for any damages caused by a riot if a municipality interferes with law enforcement's ability to provide reasonable law enforcement protection. You can email our state legislatures about these bills, Senator Aaron Bean and Representative Cord Bird, and their email addresses are on the screen. Our upcoming April meeting is Wednesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. It will be a town hall with our Representative Rory Diamond. So we'll be getting updates from our Jacksonville City Council Beaches representative at that meeting. And now I would like to recognize, go ahead and recognize some of our elected officials who have who've signed on. We have Councilman Matt Carlucci, who is our representative at large, City of Jacksonville. We also have the City of Atlantic Beach Assistant City Manager Kevin Hogenkamp is online. Let's see. And I think that's all we have so far. Sometimes they will sign in separately. But thank you, Councilman Carlucci and Assistant City Manager Hogenkamp for joining us for this meeting. So our meeting tonight is our schools in COVID. Where are we and where are we going? Our guest speakers are Elizabeth Andersen, who is our representative of the Duval County School Board District 2, Principal Dean Ledford from Fletcher High School, Principal Chelsea Matthews from Fletcher Middle School, Principal Kim Gallagher from Atlantic Beach Elementary School, Nicole Gilbert, Fletcher High School teacher, and Colby Smith, who's a Fletcher High School senior. So I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention Sandy Golding, who is on our board, who is also a Jacksonville Beach City Council person. Thank you for the reminder, Sandy. I will remember that. We will go ahead and start with opening introductions. We will go ahead and start with Elizabeth Andersen, followed by Principal Ledford, Principal Matthews, Principal Gallagher, Nicole Gilbert, and Cody Smith. So, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you all so much for being here. You know, when I was getting ready for tonight, I realized that I think a Beaches Watch meeting was the first virtual community meeting that I held almost a year ago now. So here we are, still in a pandemic, and meeting virtually again. So I just want to say thank you all for continuing to attend these meetings and for joining us here tonight and for allowing me to continue to participate with you. So I want to give you just a brief overview. I know that we have a lot to talk about tonight, but I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's going on with the district, especially related to COVID and how we've been able to manage. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. And start with this little presentation. So here's a quick overview of Duval County Public Schools. We are still rated a B district, but still less than ½ point away from being an A rated district. So we are very proud of the progress we've made over the last decade or so. Even though we did not have any state assessments last year, our graduation rate rose to a historic high, 90.2. We think that there may have been some difference if our students were tested with the FSA, but we still expect that we would have had record highs. And one of the things that I think is the most exciting is that we're really closing the achievement gap among our subgroups. So in the state of Florida, Duval County for last school year had the highest graduation rate for students with disabilities. And also our students of color and our white students are really closing that gap. We continue to be one of the largest employers in Duval County. I think we are still second only to the military. We have over 200 schools, including comprehensive schools, charter schools, center schools, and a virtual school. And we continue to enroll over 127,000 students served by a variety of programs within our public school system. So last year we went on spring break and we never returned. And as we prepare to go again on spring break, I think some people are having some flashbacks, but you know, we have certainly come quite a long way. We were one of the first districts to go on spring break across the state. So when we had to return and the numbers for COVID were rising, and the governor came in and said, okay, we're gonna give you an extension, we had less time than other districts around the state to prepare. But the team at Duval County Public Schools are incredible, and they came together and they were innovative and smart very quickly to develop this Duval homeroom remote learning platform that has really become a brand for us that is really exciting. They created an instructional guide for our teachers to use. They created platforms for teachers to help each other. And it was really this collaborative, incredible experience as teachers were supporting one another through this unprecedented time. We worked on developing school-based mitigation protocols, delivering PPEs. One of the most exciting things I think that happened last spring and through the summer was our big yellow lunch and learn delivery of academic materials and meals into neighborhoods and communities. We know that our schools are so much more than just places for learning. They support our students in so many other ways. And so being able to get meals out to families and children was super important. And then of course, our distribution of laptops and hotspots so that students could stay connected was phenomenal. I think we delivered somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40,000 laptops to students so that they could continue their learning remotely from home. Once the summer came, it was important to start to think about, okay, now we've been doing this for a few months. What is the next school year going to look like? So we turned to our partners at the Florida Department of Health. You know, we were building this plane while flying. I think that's something that Mr. Suarez says all the time, and there's just not a better description. It was a very, very challenging time, but they worked very closely together to get a matrix developed for how we would keep schools or classrooms open or closed. We hired on 25 additional temporary nursing staff as a rapid response team to help support our schools. Of course, PPE was delivered. We were one of the first districts to get a mask order in, to get desk shields ordered. So everybody was working really quickly and very proactive in getting the supplies we needed for schools and for teachers. One of the things I thought was really cool too is this parent support shop that they set up for the first week of school to be able to help parents get the things that they needed and the information that they needed and to understand more if they had questions. So of course, all of those procedures went into place. This is a quick snapshot here of the matrix that we have been using, we've abided by since the beginning of school. Our incredible head of nursing, Elizabeth Trisoto, who's here with us tonight, worked closely with the Department of Health and actually a team of physicians from our community to look at what should these thresholds be. When we got news that there was an executive order from the Commissioner of Education that schools would have to open, brick and mortar schools would absolutely have to open, then our focus really was, how do we do this in the safest way possible? Because we know that there's no chance that we will be able to prevent this spread. How do we do it safely if we can, and mitigating risk as much as possible? The other really important piece of the puzzle that was near and dear to my heart was making sure that we had some sort of transparent dashboard that was available to families. If you are a parent, or even if you're a teacher or staff member, you know, we've gone through multiple iterations of this dashboard because it has been a challenge with contact tracing and how and when to communicate information with families. But you know, eventually, after we sorted through all of the sticking points, and the Department of Health got a little backed up there, but we just decided to let families know as soon as we got word that there was a case, we would let families know. And that was tough because you know, we didn't want to overstep our boundaries, and it's been really a dance that we've had to do, trying to make sure that we are as transparent as possible with families and communities, but also making sure that we're giving really accurate and reliable information. Sorry if you can hear that horn going off outside. Here's a snapshot of our CARES funding. This is the first round of funding that districts received through CARES. You can see that there's a grand total. The money that comes into our public school systems has to be split between private schools and charter schools. And so the charter school dollars come off of the public share that you see there, and then there's the share for the private schools. I will share this one last slide with you, and then I'm gonna move on. I know that it's time to introduce our other folks here, but this is, you can see here, the split between enrollment in our brick and mortar classrooms. So in our buildings, the blue bar here is the percentage of the district on the whole enrolled in brick and mortar schools, and the yellow bar is a reflection of just District 2. So it's going to be our beaches and Intercoastal West, and how that enrollment has looked over the course of the school year. And you can see now we are right on par with the district as a whole at 80%. So I'll stop there and let our other panelists hop in, and I'm happy to answer questions as we continue.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let me just remind the audience too that we will be taking questions from the audience. Since this is about COVID, we would like the questions to stay focused on the COVID issue. If you have any other questions pertaining to any other issues, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box, but that may be something that they could respond to offline. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Dean Ledford?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. I'm Dean Ledford, principal at Fletcher High School. First off, thank you, Beaches Watch, for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the meeting. So my first thoughts around the impact and how that's had an effect on me and my role dealing with COVID, I believe the first thing that pops in my mind is constantly thinking through logistics of events, whatever we're doing around school programs, assemblies, constantly weighing those positives and negatives for the students. Many things that used to be routine for us to do are no longer routine because you constantly have to remember about the COVID. So if you want to have an assembly of seniors, oh yeah, you just can't call them all down to the auditorium because that's too many. You have to go by alphabet. And that's just a very small sample of some of the different things you constantly have to think through as you're moving through just different events and programs. And then even to the what or who you can have on campus. Again, the benefits to the students and weighing those positives and negatives. And I can truly say, I believe when we first got back, as school board member Andersen alluded to, when we got back and it was time to do the master schedule, now underneath the impact of COVID, we started out with students that are brick and mortar, as well as Duval homeroom. And when building that master schedule, it was one of the most challenging things I have gone through in my educational experience. Building it so that we're providing that top quality education that we strive to do for Duval homeroom, as well as our brick and mortar students. And believe it or not, each of those master schedules, they're kind of separate, but they do impact each other because you're using the same tools and resources, the same group of teachers to create both of those schedules. So that was one of the very difficult things once we got this school year started to get that up and running. And then I think you worry about your staff spreading thin. The constant temperature checks for us, doing temperature checks. We have just around 2,000 students. So outside of the Duval homeroom, that's for us is about 1,700 students that are coming on campus a day doing the temperature checks with 6 different entrances, making sure somebody's out there every morning. And then the contact tracing part that we, the role that sometimes the schools play regarding the contact tracing and helping call parents and different things of that nature. You just worry about your staff and, just spreading them thin. And then teachers, and I know Miss, Gilbert will probably allude to some of this as well, as managing students and managing the lesson plan deliveries as students are pulled in and out of classrooms. Putting assignments and different things online when students have been pulled out of class. And that sounds easy, but it may have been an assignment that they really wanted the teacher knew they needed to be there and work with the students. And now you just have to put it online. And when a student gets pulled from the classroom during quarantine, they're not a Duval homeroom student, so they don't have the live teacher many times being able to work with them while they're at home during quarantine. So it weighs heavily on our teachers, and I believe ours do a fantastic job with that. And then last but definitely not least is our students. And I know Colby may talk about this. He does better than most, but I think the stress levels for them are up tremendously. Everything kind of has a weight on it right now for students. And when students get pulled in and out, not only is it tough for teachers, but it's also tough for students as well. And just adapting to that role and doing things differently. And I think for us, just to, as an administrator, you try to stay upbeat for the staff and the students, because they are going through things, and a lot of us for the first time, and trying to maneuver our way through this, and just trying to stay upbeat for the staff and students and pushing forward so that hopefully we can continue to provide that top education for everyone here at Fletcher High School. Again, I appreciate you guys letting me on.
All right, thank you. And let me just remind the panelists, we're going to have topical questions for you to answer. So just be mindful that, because these may cover may be a little redundant. So just keeping the 3 minutes to, introducing yourself and your role, and, just maybe a brief statement about the impact. But we will be covering, like I said, with some specific topical questions in the presentation. So Principal Matthews.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Chelsea Matthews, and I have the honor of serving as principal at Fletcher Middle School. I have to echo the sentiments of Principal Ledford talking about logistical challenges in dealing with COVID-19. I would like to talk a little bit about the social, emotional impact it's had on our students and our families and our community. A lot of times we think about how do we do this, and we don't think about what is this doing to us or what's happening in the process. So I'm thinking a lot about, and have thought a lot about, the emotional side effects and strain it has had on not just students, but parents and our teachers, our students specifically. I can't say COVID has been all bad, because there have been some students who are really excelling at working from home and working at their own pace, where when they were with us face to face, they were getting in a little bit of trouble here and there, and now they're straight A's. But I can't say that that's the same story for every student. There are some students who really need and hunger for that interaction with their teachers, that face-to-face interaction. I was that student, very hands-on, needing to see it, needing to touch it and feel it. And we do have students who are Duval homeroom that aren't having that experience, and it is really having a negative impact on their grades, on their mental health, and it's hard to reach out to them when they're home and non-responsive to emails, or not responsive to phone calls. And then I think about the teachers who are some doing both. They have a Duval homeroom class, and then they have a face-to-face class, and then they're covering a lunch, and then they're coming over to help take temperatures, and how there's only so much a person can bear without reaching that breaking point. So we're really trying hard to keep a temperature and a pulse on how our staff is doing by doing daily check-ins, and when we can, checking in with them during faculty meetings. So just thinking about how we can best support the emotional and social well-being of all of our staff members, and letting our parents know that this is temporary, that you can't come into the building. We miss our PTSA coming on campus to lend us a hand. We did the book fair a couple weeks ago without them, and oh my goodness, their presence was missed, I tell you. So I'm just thankful for some of the positive that have come out of this transition, but I'm really always thinking about how can we better support our students, our parents, and our teachers socially and emotionally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Principal Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I definitely agree with what Mr. Ledford and Ms. Matthews said too. It has been, there's been some ups and downs. My name is Kim Gallagher. I'm principal at Atlantic Beach Elementary School. I'm also an Atlantic Beach resident. So I've been in other beaches watches meetings before, and I enjoy every one of them for the information and the unity between the three beaches in our community. I think for the elementary level, a big challenge at the beginning of the school year was the parents of the kindergarten students. So imagine being a mother of a child and you're dropping off your 5-year-old at a school that you may have not ever stepped foot in. Because normally in the spring, we have kindergarten orientation before the school year even starts, and we couldn't have that this year. And so to me, it's just amazing the trust that our parents have put into all of our teachers, that we just take their kids every day into a building that they've never stepped foot in. So that's been just a challenge, and something that we've worked through just through a lot of communication. So we've been communicating a lot with the parents through videos and A lot of pictures being sent home to parents so they can see where their children are all day long, because our parents are very active at the Beaches community. They love to be in our schools, and we miss them being in our schools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Principal Gallagher. Ms. Gilbert?
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Nicole Gilbert. I'm a teacher at Fletcher High School. This is my 18th year teaching. It's my 6th year at Fletcher. So this year I'm teaching 7 classes. I have 1 in-person AP English language class, 2 in-person ACE English language classes, 2 in-person ACE literature classes, and then kind of in the middle, I have a double blocked Duval homeroom section of both ACE language and ACE literature. So we've got a lot going on. I also have a student at Fletcher Middle School, so I am also a DCPS parent, and my husband teaches at St. Pablo Elementary, so we have 3 Beaches schools in one household. As far as how COVID is going, just to echo what everyone else has said, logistics are one of the biggest things that I have to think about, just kind of on a smaller scale. Group activities and learning look very different in my classroom than they used to. And so it's, forced me out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways, learning new platforms and new technology, thinking about new ways to get students to engage with me and to engage with each other in a limited manner in class, and then also in a virtual space. If you want, you can follow my YouTube channel, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my whole life. But so there have been challenges, but there's also been benefits to everything that we have going on.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gilbert. And last of all, but not least, our student, Colby Smith.
Thank you, Maria and the Beaches Watch, for having me. My name is Colby Smith. I'm a senior at Fletcher High School. I'm in the ACE program, and I have Miss Gilbert as one of my teachers. This is my 2nd year having her. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Jacksonville Beach. So are my parents. And then I'm also in my school activity. I'm the president of the Fletcher Marine Coastal Science Club, headed by Coach Kevin Brown, as he is well known around these parts. I also played varsity football this year, as you can see in the jersey in the background. And then, so how COVID has affected that is through really extracurricular activities. It's very limited on what we can do and what we can't do, such as like for the Fletcher Marine Coastal Science Club, it was difficult to organize events and have all the suppliers for the sea oats or the beach cleanup crew to all get in on a certain date and with limited amount of people and space on it. And then over to sports, not just football, but for every sport, you have practices every day, which increase the exposure rate, if you want to say. So if one person was to test positive or to be exposed, then you have to take precautions about who that player was with, when were they working out with each other, or what practice, all that happened. So, and coaches have to balance games and practices with those in quarantine and stuff. So my purpose is to provide a student perspective. So that was my extracurricular activities. And now into the school, I've been in both brick and mortar and online school. I actually tested positive for COVID back in November, excuse me. So I know both perspective of online and in-person teaching. So I'm here to provide the student perspective as a high school senior to this meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Colby. So we have a great variety of panelists here to bring different perspectives. So let's jump right into some of the questions here. What has been learned about our school system, both positive and negative, due to COVID's impact? And I want to make this more conversationalist, so you can kind of jump in, and if you want to unmute your mics, but just kind of be respectful of each other, not talk over each other. But whoever wants to take that first, you're welcome to it. We're not calling on anyone in any particular order. But what have we learned about our school system, both positive and negative?
I'll jump in. So 3 things come to mind. I think Team Duval has been very proactive, very preventative, and very energetic. So PPE, proactive in that they overly communicated what our vision was and what we were doing and how we were going to do it. It was very organized. It didn't seem chaotic or rushed as far as the communications to school leaders. So that gave us an opportunity to think through, how does these parameters fit for our buildings? Will this logistically work for my lunch? Will this logistically work for our dismissal? How can I organize my building to be proactive when students come back? So last year, there was no time lost when the message went out that we were all online, and there was no time lost when we opened back up for the hybrid. So I do think that the overall planning process was streamlined and it was very proactive. It was preventative in the fact that we were overloaded with PPE and hand sanitizer and barriers and masks. So some districts where I'm thinking through and talking to other colleagues outside of Duval, the doors were open to their schools and they were not equipped with shields, plus masks, plus shields, plus hand sanitizer, plus soap. And so I kind of felt bad that we were in this predicament where we were overly supported to have those preventative measures in place. And then energetic, you cannot drag your feet in the midst of a pandemic. There has to be a level of energy and calmness about the atmosphere or climate. So I have felt, even as a newer principal, I'm in my second year, I've never felt that there was a panic or that there was confusion overall. It took one phone call or one email for me to say, we need, and it was done. So I'm very appreciative of those three things. Some negatives really quickly, I would say, how do we reach students where they're not logging on, they're not answering their phone, their addresses and phone numbers have changed, and then we're held accountable to make sure that they pass. And that is what's keeping me up at night right now, is students that I have not seen since last March, have not been able to reach them by phone, have not been able to send a social worker out to say, hey, what can we do to get you the internet or the hotspot or the packet or the assignment or the phone that you need to make the connection so that you promote at the end of this year. So that's one thing I think we have to continue to keep a focus between now and the end of the school year, to say that we've exhausted all possible solutions to reach all students.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? No? Okay. So I think Principal Matthews has touched on this, but what deficiencies, inequities, or other disparities in general have been exposed regarding our school system because of the pandemic?
So I can talk about that really quickly. As far as something that I thought was really positive that Duval County has done to address the inequities, especially in technology, is the one-on-one devices that have gone out to, I know at Fletcher, they have at the high school level. And I believe they've been at the middle school, because I know my kiddos had them for at least 2 years. So that has been a really big aid to me as a teacher when I do have students, as I do right now, who have been contact traced, who have been out for quarantine, and they're able to take their laptop with them. And I know that I can communicate with them. I know that the barrier to communication there is not that they don't have the physical piece that they need. They have that computer. I'm able to get out, they're able to get on Teams. They're able to see what they need to see. I can email them. So as you know, as a teacher, that communication piece has been really helpful for me.
Excellent, thank you.
I will add too, at the district level, you know, the idea that children do not have, my dog is moving under my leg, excuse me. The children don't have access to these resources. They don't have computers, they don't have internet, that we have students that are going to buildings that have Wi-Fi so that they can get into a classroom. I mean, certainly that exacerbates and highlights some of the real problems that we have. Families that are without meals or food assistance. You know, that is obviously one of those things that we recognize that schools provide for children and families, that when schools are closed and they are shuttered, that doesn't exist. Teachers and building administrators, counselors, they put eyes on children to make sure they are healthy and well and safe every day. And when children don't come into our building, as Ms. Matthews has already said, we don't know what's going on with them. And so if there's a struggle at home, if there is any neglect or abuse happening, who's looking at that? So certainly I think those are things that are unfortunate, that we've just become that much more aware of, that schools really shoulder that responsibility for our communities.
Colby, were you going to add something?
Yes, I was going to build off of Ms. Gilbert's point of view, is seeing how I can say this for Fletcher High School. I can't say this for any of the other Duval County schools. My little brother, he's at Fletcher Middle School right now, so I can attest for Fletcher Middle as well. But I know that with the individual laptops that are being handed out, it allows for everyone to have, like Ms. Gilbert said, some way of communicating with their teachers, so that even if we are quarantined or we are like contact traced and have to stay at home, we can still operate and have direct communications to our teachers through homeroom and OneView. And it allows for better, like, students to get more comfortable with technology. I can say that for like a long-term effect. So the benefit for using technology is that, I mean, obviously in today's society, we're getting more technologically advanced. So we're getting a little bit more away from pencil paper. So that allows us to get more comfortable with programs and software and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ms. Gallagher?
I'm also, like Ms. Gilbert, a Duval County Public Schools family. My husband is a teacher at Mayport Middle. Our oldest daughter is at Mayport Middle, and our youngest daughter is at Atlantic Beach Elementary. So as far as the Mayport also has the one-on-one device, which is great. And we've seen in our own house with the hybrid at the beginning of the school year, and it was beneficial. I want to add in the benefit of the lunch program. It was wonderful in the spring, not only to help feed the families, but also it did provide a little bit of social interaction. Even if people were just driving by and waving to each other, it was wonderful. At some schools, including Atlantic Beach Elementary, the curbside lunch has ended right now. However, other organizations have stepped up to feed our children, such as Blessings in a Backpack. We had a delivery on Friday, and the bags were so heavy, our kids couldn't even carry them. And so that was a good problem to help solve. And we just helped get all of those bags home to the kids so they could have some good food from our beaches community for the weekend. And those bags in particular were packed by the Atlantic Beach Youth Council. So it's just great that everyone's working together.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Next question is, so what have been the short-term impacts on learning, the co-curricular activities, health and well-being, parental challenges? I think you've all kind of touched on those topics. And if you could kind of elaborate in that particular area that you feel the most comfortable, but what's been kind of those short-term impacts? And then the follow-up question to that will be, what are the anticipated long-term impacts, if you can answer, if you can respond to that? Colby?
Sorry, Mr. Ledford. I think for a short-term impact, students are now more focused on individual work rather than group work, which both can have positive and negative effects based on how those students learn. For me personally, individual work has allowed me to better understand whatever topic we're learning, such as in math about like the graphs and stuff, or in English about Shakespeare. It allows me to better understand that specific topic rather than rely on group members to help me explain it. But now there's also, since we don't have group work as much, it kind of puts all that pressure on that individual student to learn and perform by themselves. And I'll give you a little visual of it in the classroom. So we have a plastic divider that's in front of us and to our right, on every single desk. So, and then everyone has their mask on, and the teacher is also like talking and teaching. So that's just a little perspective of what's in the classroom and what everyone else can expect, even though they're not at Fletcher High School or any other high school or middle school or elementary school.
Excellent, thank you. Principal Ledford?
Yeah, one of the first things that came to my mind of a couple of things is one, graduation, making sure our students, because we got a little behind in the number of assessments that we were given, the number of opportunities that we were providing our seniors, because juniors now this year are not waived from the requirement to meet the concordant scores and graduation scores on assessments. So trying to make sure they get the number of assessments and get plenty of opportunities to reach those, and then the instruction to go with it as well, bringing those status. So that was some of the short-term things I thought of. And also helping students, fill the gaps for them when it comes to college, and making sure, they've done what they need to do inside the classroom, but they may not know the next steps. And sometimes Duval homeroom students and students brick and mortar, if they're in and out of the school, it's hard to get to them to make sure that they're doing the college applications, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, everything they need to do, and then work on financial stuff as well, so that they can make that step into college. And those are the two things I thought of when you talked about some of the long and short-term effects.
Thank you. Ms. Matthews?
Yes, I like to share a concrete short-term impact that affected Fletcher Middle School this year. At the end of last year, we started off last year with about 1,305 students, and 1,305 is the magic number to have 3 guidance counselors. And when COVID-19 happened, a lot of parents, likely so, decided to homeschool or to do virtual or for FLVS. And so our enrollment dropped to about 1,283. And 1,305, again, is the magic number for 3 guidance counselors. And when we dropped to 1,283, we lost a valuable guidance counselor, and we dropped to two certified guidance counselors to service 1,283 students with diverse needs, and then a pandemic. So short term, we are struggling to have those conversations with students about grades, goals, or just come talk to me. How's your day? How's your day? Even if our counselors met with a student every 10 minutes, they'll never be able to do a check-in with all of the students like we would, dividing our students into grade level teams for a counselor. So long-term, looking forward to next year, we are recruiting every Thursday to try to get back to that sweet spot, 1,305. So if you know anyone trying to go to Mayport, tell them no. We want to get back to our 1,305, and I love Principal Cook, he's awesome. But we want to get back to that 1,305, and we want parents to trust us with their students so that we can provide that service to them. And everyone's a guidance counselor this year, and we're equipping our staff on how to be that listener and how to ask the right questions and look for the right signs in students. But that is a short-term and long-term, potentially. We don't know when our students all come back if we'll find someone qualified and ready and willing to go into that position that could fulfill that role and those responsibilities. So I want to think through how we can use outside resources and outside organizations to think about how are we going to support students as they transition back to brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, is that something you could respond to as far as that number, the 1,305? That Principal Matthews was talking about? I mean, even 3 guidance counselors doesn't sound like a lot of, it sounds like they're still stretched and now down to 2. Is there any talk within the district from the school board side as far as trying to, be more flexible with those numbers? I mean, where would that other counselor go? Was that other counselor sent to another school, or they're just kind of in limbo until enrollment comes back up? Can you address that? Or if not,
So yes, the board is always talking about these numbers. The ratios for counselors and social workers, I think, especially for me as a licensed mental health counselor, are certainly not where I would like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Our students and our building staff people have so much more to bear on their shoulders than 2 counselors could possibly help manage. We have more need than our psychologists can possibly get to assess and put plans in place for. And so it is quite the struggle. So the district has a formula or matrix based on enrollment for guidance counselors, for resource teachers. I'm sure at the elementary school level, Ms. Gallagher knows exactly what her magic numbers are to be able to keep all of her staff in place. And so it is just an across the board formula. If you have a certain number of students, then you get a certain number of resources, whether that is teachers or counselors or positions and other supports.
But they're looking at, obviously, with this particular time and this pandemic, trying to be more flexible or at least not take away resources, just strictly based on enrollment, based on numbers?
Maria, it's funny because this is one of the conversations we're having sort of around like CARES dollars, right? Is how can we use these funds to help support our buildings? And we're not supposed to use funds on things like positions that have a short-term use or they would require a recurring expense. We have to be very careful about how we use these funds. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, because we're losing students, because we don't know where some students have gone, because the numbers in enrollment are down, and that's how we are funded. We are funded based on the number of children in our buildings. And this was one of the big controversies around executive orders with having schools open versus having the innovative online virtual solutions, is whether or not we would be paid and receive funds for students that are learning online because they are not present in our building. And luckily we were able to have that hold harmless put in place. And we hear that we're supposed to be held harmless here for this last half of the school year, but we are waiting to make sure that that is true. We know that moving into next school year, we will not get paid for students that are not present in our building. And so the funds don't come out of nowhere. And so this is where it's really a struggle when we're talking about the operational costs of staff members.
Right. So that's definitely part of that long-term impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other comments to this question? Nicole, do you have any as a person in the classroom?
So Colby gave us his perspective on what it kind of looks like to sit in the desk and look out as he's being taught or as he's sitting in a classroom. As a teacher, kind of standing in front of a classroom full of dividers and full of students with masks. I mean, it's March, and I'll have a student who will very quickly take their mask down to take a sip of water, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what you look like. So there are times when I still feel like I'm trying to make those connections with my students that I would have made, by this point already. But, they're behind the plastic. And while, the plastic is clear, I didn't think it was going to make such a difference. It's, especially for high schoolers, it seems to be a little bit of a psychological barrier and not just a physical barrier, because it makes them much more prone to, when I ask a question, to just kind of sit, right? Because they're like, she can't see me, I'm behind the plexiglass. And so it takes a lot more energy as a teacher to kind of draw that out when you're almost literally trying to get them out from behind something, both physically and psychologically. So, like I said, lots of different things that we're trying to to make it so that we can, you know, be outside, you know, and sit at our lunch tables with our masks on and do small group discussion outside, you know, things like that. So that way we can still have those interactions and, you know, in a way that is safe and positive. So.
And you bring up a good point, Nicole, about the outdoor classroom. I know there's been a lot of research done about the benefits of an outdoor classroom. And in fact, when I was at UNF, we had a teacher, a professor, who that was one of her main research topics. And that was, so is that something that that maybe the teachers, the school board, another thing about our school system might be changing as far as, you know, adopting more of these outdoor classroom settings, particularly because of what you said, Nicole, you know, you're creating this barrier between you and your students and this learning environment. Can any of you to any, you know, anything as far as that being developed? Kim?
Yes, so as Nicole said, with the classroom dense fields in the elementary level, we see everything. The kids lick them, they lean up against them, you know, they're little kids. So, but it becomes their own little cubicle and they decorate it and everything. But the Atlantic Beach Elementary campus is quite large. And we've been fortunate enough that we've had some parent volunteers in the past write grants and build some outdoor classrooms. So we have 3 large outdoor classroom settings with a lot of seating areas. And this year also our PTA donated a lot of picnic benches so the kids can be outside. I also know that at Mayport Middle, they also had, actually, I don't know the number, but many more picnic tables donated to the school so the kids can be outside during lunch. So the kids, they need to be outside more than ever right now. And so also, I know at Atlantic Beach, we have a large shade structure similar to the one at the Fletcher High School outdoor area. And it's just great that the kids can continue having PE outside at all times of the year. Yeah. So going outside has been beneficial to the kids.
That's great. That's great. So again, that's, you know, kind of changing that old rule, the old way of teaching always indoors to taking them outdoors and having that outdoor environment experience. Any other comments, Elizabeth?
I'm going to ask Ms. Matthews to put a plug in for her outdoor classroom because I know that Fletcher Middle School is wanting to work on that, and they're trying to pull together the projects and the funds. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Matthews. I will say at the district level and from the superintendent, we have said, and the superintendent has said from day one, please use all available space, including your outdoor space. If the weather is good, go outside. And so certainly we encourage folks to do that as much as possible. But Ms. Matthews, please tell us about your outdoor classroom.
Thank you, Ms. Andersen. So I emailed Ms. Andersen maybe 2 weeks ago, kid you not, that we are working at Fletcher Middle to get an outdoor classroom right outside our bike and skateboard rack. It's just a big open space right outside our science classroom. So the science teachers are like, we had whiteboards on wheels and a few more benches, we could really do this. And all of our teachers could rotate and use this outside classroom. And then we have, of course, our courtyard, which already have picnic tables that we use during lunch. But before lunch and after lunch, that could be a second outdoor classroom. So right now, we've already got a quote for 10 picnic tables. Those things are expensive, $1,000 per table, because it has to be an approved DCPS vendor. They have to install it. It has to meet all safety requirements. And then we, within our own school budget, can afford the whiteboards on wheels. So we are hoping to get this done by the end of the school year, so that even when COVID is over, we plan on keeping those outdoor classrooms and using those to provide a different, sorry, it's not a Zoom call without a dog barking, so that we can utilize that to enhance learning for our students. So we hope to keep you posted on our progress.
Well, that's excellent, excellent news. So thank you all for sharing that. That's the bright side. That's the positive side of this, right? So, so what are the plans for graduation and end of the year activities? We recently read that students basically would need to choose whether to attend prom and then stay home the following week, or maybe not even attend prom, depending on what they have going on that following week. So, Colby, maybe we'll start with you, since that seems like this would impact you directly.
Yes, ma'am. So obviously prom and graduation have been altered, to say the least. So for the details about prom, it's going to happen towards the end of March. And instead of being at, I'm not even sure where it was because we didn't have a prom last year and I was a sophomore the year before, so I didn't even go. But now it's going to be in the Fletcher football field, the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do decide to attend prom, you have to quarantine for 10 calendar days afterwards, which right. Mr. Ledford had done an amazing job about saying, okay, we're going to put it down to only 5 school days. So there's obviously you have your senior prom, but you're missing 5 days of school. So it's a way in that I'm not sure how my fellow classmates are going to take that. And then for graduation, they moved the graduation from, instead of the Veterans Memorial Arena for the past however many years it's been, they're going to now have it at the Fletcher Stadium. So at 7 p.m., I believe, on June 7th. So hopefully it's not too hot when that happens, but I mean, we'll cross our fingers about that.
Thank you. Any other comments as far as the end of the year activities, graduation? Principal Ledford?
Yes, ma'am. First off, for prom, we're just, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, trying to weigh the positives and negatives, and like Colby alluded to, and I told the seniors this, one of the biggest reasons we're trying to put together something for them is because they didn't get it last year. So we're really trying to do everything we can to give them that normal experience of coming through and having a senior year. And because some activities we may or may not be able to do, we felt like this with the outdoor venue, taking some of the precautions about moving schools to virtual learning, we can get this done. But we did allude to, yes, I tried to find a date where we had some days off in there away from school. So the 1st and the 2nd of April, the students are off. So that counts in towards our 10 days. And so we narrowed it down to just 5 days. Students have to be out of class, which is a long time. I don't like it. Obviously, no principal wants the students out of class during that time. But we're working with our athletic staff and drama department and different things like that with their events to seeing what we can do to manage that situation with some of the students that elect to do prom. But again, it's really just trying to provide that experience for them so that the class of 21 does not go without in any way, shape, or form that we can possibly help it. And then graduation, I can say, last year, obviously we pushed back into the summer for graduation and then held it in June, I believe, July. I can't remember, I'll be honest. But we got a lot of accolades from the prom and a lot of parents, from graduation, a lot of parents really enjoyed it in the stadium. It felt like it was done well. Obviously more tickets they would like. That was one of the drawbacks, but they really liked the atmosphere a little more, their culture, and I think they enjoyed the graduation in the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I say as well, and I've got to give props to Principal Ledford. I mean, Fletcher has had a heck of a year, and he has done such a good job bobbing and weaving with all of the struggle that has come for them. But when we think about prom, I'm excited to have an opportunity to at least offer it to seniors. As Colby mentioned, there was nothing last year. And so as a senior this year, not even having the opportunity to do anything last year, this is be the last time that he might have this experience to have prom. We know that homecoming was canceled in the fall. And even though homecoming was canceled, we also know that lots of students still decided to get together and have after hours gatherings. And it was as a result of some of those after hours. Hey, listen, I'm not blaming you, Colby. No hate, don't worry about it. But as a result of those after hours gatherings, there was some outbreaks. And that's why Fletcher High School was one of our first schools to close, is because there was a spread among students from these extracurricular after hours gatherings where COVID, hit. And so, we're not concerned necessarily that the prom that would take place outdoors in the stadium itself would be risky, but what are our students doing afterwards, and how are they getting together, and how are they celebrating? And we want to make sure that as they get together, that it's not coming back. And the seniors that choose to attend prom would need to be out for 5 days, but we're not closing a whole school. And so, when you're thinking about the large picture, it's a bummer, but we have to make sure that everyone, including our teachers and staff that are in our buildings, aren't put at risk because our seniors want to have a good time.
Yeah. Yes, Nicole?
So from the teacher's perspective, I also agree that I'm so pleased that prom is something we're able to offer our students. I think that is so important. I teach all upperclassmen, so more than likely I will be a virtual teacher for those days, but that's fine. It's so much easier to know that and to be able to plan for that than, what we had happen in October, where it was just like, all of a sudden it was like the switch turned off and suddenly it's like, hey, guess what you're going to do now? Knowing that this is upcoming, knowing that this is something that I can, that I can gear up for, that I can make sure that the students are ready, that I'm ready, makes a huge difference. And, it allows our seniors, who I love so much, to have this opportunity and to get to do something that feels more normal and, what they would get to do in a more normal year. So I'm so glad that we're able to do this for them.
Yes. Well, normalcy is something we're all striving for, right? In this time of COVID. So that's all the topical questions that we have. I'm checking our chat box, and we do have some questions and comments from our audience. So I'd like to go ahead and share those and then share the questions. One was, I like the idea of school nurses, as the school board Elizabeth Andersen report stated, but would like permanent ones in feeder patterns, not just temporary. Is that something you can comment on, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think that the school nursing resource falls in a similar camp as our social workers, our psychologists, our counselors. There are not enough, and we don't have enough resources to make them accessible to every school. Is that something I would change? In a heartbeat. I think that there is a great value that having additional support people, and our principals will tell you, sometimes just having extra warm bodies, extra hands to be able to pick up and support our schools when they don't have a job-related task, when they're not in the business of nursing at that moment, to be able to just feel a smile or a hand on a shoulder in the hallway during non-COVID times, would be a great help. And so I would love to support having nurses. I would love to support having more counselors and school social workers. We just don't have the funding for it. I didn't mention before, but one of the things that the board has had to tackle this year is increasing new or beginning teacher salaries. And so we've been able to raise those beginning teacher salaries as close to what the governor wants as possible. But when we are given requirements about where we have to spend our operational dollars and how we have to spend those, whether it's on beginning teachers or veteran teachers, and we're told 80% of this pot of money has to go to beginning teachers, and you only have 20% left to support your veteran teachers. It's very, very difficult, and it's not equitable, and it's not the way that we would necessarily like to see it happen. But we try our best to do what we can, genuinely, sincerely, to support our schools and staff.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. This is a comment, just, thank you for recognizing the challenges teachers have worked through to make our students safe and successful. And a question, are you seeing cognitive gaps from last spring? Can we measure what was lost? I don't know if any.
I just got to look at progress monitoring data across the whole district. Our principals might have better insight to what's happening in their particular schools, or whether they're seeing a difference. I will say it's really impressive that compared to last year's data and this year's data, we are not seeing a huge gap or difference when we're looking at the district on a macro scale. So principals might have a different picture of what's happening in their buildings, but by and large, I'm really impressed with the high quality education that is taking place despite a pandemic. Despite all of the obstacles, despite quarantines and this revolving door of people in and out of our buildings, without the supports of volunteers. So I'm really impressed with the work that's happening. I'm not seeing huge learning losses across the board. And it's really interesting where there are gaps between Duval homeroom students and brick and mortar students. You know, we're seeing that more in the elementary school level, and maybe Principal Gallagher can speak if this is something that you're seeing in your school, that our Duval homeroom students are performing a little better. And so it's curious, and it begs the question, how much support are they getting in their homes? Are they getting one-on-one time with a parent that's helping them improve their learning? Or do they have a parent that's helping support doing the work for them? And are they really getting the high quality education that they need to? We're unsure because they're in the home. And so I'm crossing my fingers that we are not going to see huge gaps and huge learning losses here in our district. But I think that's time will tell. And we know that at the moment, the state is continuing to move forward with Florida assessments, with our state standardized assessments in our brick and mortar buildings, and requiring those students to come into the building, whether they're Duval homeroom or not, to take those tests. So we will see. At this moment, we only have about 88% of our students coming in or willing to come into schools. And in order for those assessments to sort of count for our grades and the accountability system, we need 95% of our students to be counted in testing. So while families are choosing to opt out, which is absolutely their right and their choice to keep their families safe, this is one of those sort of unforeseen consequences. If the state requires folks to come into brick and mortar to test and families don't want to do that, I don't know how it's going to reflect. So even though they're learning, our school grades and our district grade might not reflect the high quality learning that's happening in the buildings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Any other comments, follow up? So we had one of our members ask, could someone explain to people listening focus and team platforms? Nicole or Colby, go ahead.
We can both do it. So Focus is the grade portal. It's where you can log in to see your students' progress and where their assignments are posted, where their grades are posted. I know the district does a lot of communication through Focus, where things like school choice applications and magnet applications and things like that. So like when I'm looking to see what's going on in my own kiddos' classes, I log in and I can see all of her grades and all of her assignments and things like that. So, and the students obviously can have access to that. Parents have access to that. What Teams is almost like the learning or the curriculum portal. And so this is what I use on a daily basis in my classes, where I will, I'll post all of the files. I'll post the PowerPoint presentations we do. I'll post any of the materials that we did in class. I'll put a daily agenda up. With my virtual students, this is where I can have virtual discussions. We can have discussion boards. So in my mind, Focus is more of a communication and grade management system, whereas Teams is more of like the kind of active learning stuff that I use. Colby, do you have anything to add to that from your student perspective?
No, pretty much. The only thing I'll have to add is that students can submit assignments to Focus, the grading portal, or on Teams. So, I mean, you pretty much covered everything else.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So one viewer says, what about the teachers getting the vaccines? What about combat pay? It's been a long year with kids at schools in the area, as well as teaching in the community. I think the teachers are starting to get the vaccine, or Ms. Gallagher?
Yeah, we were notified today that employees 50 and older could go get vaccinated. However, somehow I got an insider tip from a friend, and I found out that at the Gateway Mall on the north side, they were letting all educators in. So I zipped up there after school and emailed my staff too, and I got my first vaccination today. So I mean, the speeches watch meeting is awesome, but honestly, getting the first vaccine has been a really the best thing that's happened to me today. So it was great. And I know that some of the others in my faculty got it too. We were joking that, you know, we were VIP flashing our teacher ID. So that's good news. And at the Regency Mall, they are taking all teachers 50 and older right now.
Excellent, excellent.
And I'll say quickly as well, just because I know there's a lot of work happening at the district level, and Mr. Soto's, our head of nursing, is here with us if she has anything to add, but I know our nursing staff is working closely with the Department of Health to be able to get trained to offer the vaccine. So as soon as it is readily available to us and we can get our hands on it, we are ready to stand up clinics and get our staff vaccinated. It's not just teachers, but all school-related employees. I think it's going to be a really critical piece of the puzzle, and we have been prepping, and I know her and her team have been working really hard to be able to move as soon as we get hands on supply.
Excellent, excellent. That's all great news. So this is probably a question for Colby, but someone wants to know, what are the seniors thinking about after high school? Like going to college or taking a year off, traveling the world once it opens up, what?
From all of my classmates and friends, we're all going to go to the universities or colleges. We're not going to take a year off.
Okay.
I haven't, especially since now, because all the acceptances are coming out like right now. So everyone's still trying to stress out and figure out where everyone's going to go. So fortunate for me, I already decided where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the University of South Florida. But so everyone's deciding what college you're going to go to, but I haven't heard anything about anybody skipping a year or taking a break year, traveling or anything.
Okay, thank you. So comment is, I commend your entire panel for their positive and can-do attitudes under such difficult circumstances. And we share the same sentiment, but we are so grateful for all of you. You are all our heroes for sure. And Elizabeth has shared some links for us with the DCPS strategic planning and the half-penny referendum, which there was a question about the half-penny, if some of that, if the construction has started yet on the half-penny. So.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. We have been working through safety and security upgrades, and right now we are in the design and prototype phase, and Mr. Suarez is actually on the line and might be able to even answer better than me. And so maybe I'll just turn it over to him, but we're still in the gearing up phase. We haven't received any revenue yet from the half-penny. Hopefully that'll be soon. Mr. Suarez?
That's correct, Ms. Andersen. We funded with our regular millage 3 prototype projects of safety and security. Those are going on. And we funded a prototype contract for a design contract for a new K-5. And that design's ongoing now as well. The first sales tax dollars are actually supposed to arrive any day now. These first couple weeks, we haven't received like confirmation yet that they've gotten there, but we're expecting it any day. And then we'll continue on, hoping to do 4 major projects this year. New K-5s, you know, at Rutledge Pearson, at Southside Estates, a new 6-8 facility, and a new elementary up at Highlands Elementary, starting the designs for those projects. And then a lot of safety and security work is really what's in the first year of this master facility plan.
Well, excellent. Well, that wraps up all of our questions from our audience as well as from us. And we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your all your information. It has truly been a remarkable, now feels like 2 years, and we just want to commend our teachers, our students, our principals for really stepping up our district for sure. And Dr. Green under her leadership as well. The responsiveness, the responsiveness has just been really incredible. And, you know, sounds like we've learned a lot. There's a lot to take from this as far as the positives. And, you know, we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So thank you all for participating again. We wish you well, stay safe. Colby, congratulations on your graduation. And we expect great things from you. So especially working with Coach Brown all these years, we know he's a tough person to follow sometimes. So, but thank you all for sharing your insight and your candidness. We want to thank our audience for participating. And if you don't mind, please take our short meeting survey at the end of the meeting. You can again watch the recorded meeting on our YouTube at Beaches Watch 2012. Follow us on Facebook, and you can visit our website at beacheswatch.com. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to Zooming with you next month with our Jacksonville City Council Representative Rory Diamond. So thank you all.
Maria, I just want to say thank you so much. Thanks to Beaches Watch so much for always prioritizing our public schools, for bringing us in. Thank you to the panelists for joining me, and for Beaches Watch membership for always being present and engaged in our public school system. You know, it is you all that make this work possible when you believe in us and allow us to engage with the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you all. Good night.